Welcome back. Before we start talking about the Chapter 5 material, I'd like you to look at the photograph in the background for this slide. And I'm going to tell you that that's a photograph that I took a couple of years ago. And I'm wondering if you can identify where that photo might have been taken. So we did this with the beach. I'm not going to give you any hints about this one, but you can see that there's some it's a polar bear mom and a couple of babies there, so that might give you a little bit of a hint where it is. But in this case, I'm going to ask you to just log into the polar bear discussion group that I created and see if you can guess. And at some point, I'll jump into that discussion and let you know where I did take the photo. So that's just a little bit of levity to start off Chapter 5, since marketing can get a little dull from now and again. All of you should be working on your Parvoderm case study due at the end of this week. I expect that to be turned in on time. And then starting next week, we'll have a discussion about the case. And I'm going to run the discussion sort of like we've ran the bio thing that you did as a discussion early on. So I'm going to ask you to post your conclusions about the case, and then once you've posted those conclusions, then you can comment on other people's conclusions. So I'd appreciate it if all of you jump into the discussion fairly early so everybody can see what your conclusions are. And many of you may have, it's quite possible that there are multiple different solutions to the case, and hopefully we can discuss some of those different possibilities of solutions or resolutions to the problems in the case. So today we're going to go on to talking about the marketing mix, which is Chapter 5 in your text. And I'm going to break this into two sections. So this is the first section, Part 1 of Chapter 5, and we'll also do Part 2 of Chapter 5, and you'll have some questions after each one like we have throughout the course. So why do we need a marketing plan? Well, we need to know where we're going and how we're going to get there. So what are our goals, which goals are defined generally as long-term objective targets. And then objectives are short-term targets. So goals might be something that we expect to achieve in, say, 3 years or 5 years, whereas objectives are short-term ways to get there. And that's really important, and this is true for most planning. You need to have a place that you're trying to get to, and then you need to have steps in order to get you there. If you don't have those steps, generally speaking, the long-term goals will never be met. When you're setting these goals and objectives for any organization, they have to be consistent with the organization's priorities and strengths. So what's the organization's mission, and what's the organization's vision, and then what are the strengths and weaknesses of the organization? So we need to know those things so that we can set goals that are achievable and that we want to get to. So we need to get to a place that we need to be relative to what our mission and vision are. So several different ways to look at marketing plan and marketing plan strategies. If we're looking to grow, and not all businesses are, not all organizations are looking to grow, but if you're looking to grow, you generally are looking for a growth in units sales or growth in dollar sales, or both. That's kind of a given. So most organizations are looking to grow. There's certainly a lot of data out there that says that if you're not growing, you're dying as an organization. So the growth doesn't necessarily have to be just units or dollars, but that's the most common kind of growth plan for most businesses. There can also be growth plans that call for growth in quality or of what we're delivering. We'll touch on those as well. But let's look at growth for unit or dollar sales. 4 broad growth strategies, and this pretty much covers the entire spectrum. Now there are ways to narrow each one of these growth categories down, but most marketing plans that are looking for growth will follow one of these 4 strategies. And those strategies will go in, I'll talk about them each in a little bit of depth, but we're talking about market penetration, market development, product development, or diversification. So let's first talk about market penetration. So market penetration strategy is we want to sell more of what we're currently producing, whatever our product or service is, to customers in markets that we're already addressing. So we're already addressing a market for polar bear icebergs. Since that's what I'm looking at, I guess that's where I'll come up with that market. So we want to, polar bears are out there looking for icebergs. Where are we going to sell more of our products? We want to sell more icebergs to the polar bear market. That's an existing market for us. It's an existing segment for us, and we want to sell more of the same. To do that, we generally build on the relationships we already have and the value perceptions we already have. If we're already selling into a market, we must have some value perceptions and some customer relationships. And so we just want to get more market penetration. So market penetration strategies generally work for companies that have a relatively small market share. So if I have 2% of a market, I can look to grow by getting a larger percentage of that market. I can double my size by going from 2% of the market to 4% of the market. So that's a valid strategy for someone with a relatively small market share. A company that has a very large market share generally will look at one of the other strategies we're going to talk about. So if we look at a Microsoft that has 80% market share in PC operating systems, or maybe even a higher market share in terms of Office software like Word and PowerPoint and Excel, how much more penetration can they get? They're already at a very high level of penetration in the marketplace, so really there's not a lot of room to grow Microsoft by increasing the numbers of people using Word and Excel. So what do you do? What do you try to do? Well, we'll talk about that. So market penetration strategy works well for companies with relatively small market shares, doesn't work quite as well for companies with large market shares. Market development. Let's look at new segments or markets for our existing products. So we've already pretty much saturated the segment that we've targeted. So let's look at other segments. So we're selling icebergs to polar bears. Maybe there's a market for icebergs to sea lions. I don't know if sea lions climb up on icebergs, but let's assume they do. So now I'm going to chase the sea lion market rather than just the polar bear market. So I'm going to a new segment. Or maybe I'm making icebergs and I could go to a whole new segment like Saudi Arabia. Maybe I could tow my icebergs to Saudi Arabia and provide them with fresh water. So there's other ways to develop same product, new segments or new markets for existing products. So that's the second strategy that is useful for market growth. Third strategy is developing new products. Sell new products to customers in existing markets or segments. So this is a strategy that Microsoft has used. They've got dominance in Office software. They've got dominance in operating systems for PCs. and they're trying to develop and sell new products to those customers who are already using their existing products. So we know our market segment, Microsoft's biggest market segment, is the business market. So they're selling to corporations. What else can they sell to corporations who are already using their Office suite and their operating systems? What other products can Microsoft develop and or sell? Products or services can they develop and sell to those customers that they're already serving? And sometimes those things might be products that we resell. So we might have, I don't know, well, I can't think in Microsoft's case what that might be, but in other markets, we might be selling clothing to mountaineers, and then we might decide to brand and sell special high altitude cooking stoves to mountaineers. Not something that we developed or produced ourselves, but we already have the mountaineer market, so let's sell them something else, maybe that somebody else has developed. So that's a product development market. That's another way to grow. So we've talked about market penetration as a way to go. So selling more within the segment we're involved in. We've talked about market development. We talked about product development, and then the final growth strategy is diversification. So taking new products in new markets to take advantage of new opportunities. So diversified companies tend to sell quite unrelated products in different markets. So big diversifiers in the US, General Electric has been traditionally a conglomerate or diversified company. So they're selling jet engines, and they're selling medical devices like CAT scans and things like that. So totally different markets. People that buy jet engines, the customer market that buys jet engines has nothing to do with the customer market that buys medical equipment. So now there's some synergy on the other side of the manufacturing side perhaps, but there's no synergy in the customer base or the product development. So that's a diversified company. And diversified companies in general have had a relatively poor track record. However, some companies have been quite successful. GE for many years was one of the most successful companies in the world, and it was a diversified conglomerate. Berkshire Hathaway, which is owned by Warren Buffett, is a pure conglomerate, really diverse holdings. They own Burlington Northern Railroad, and they own Geico Insurance, and they own some furniture stores, and they own Dairy Queen. There's really no relationship between those various products and companies. However, they look at it and say, we can provide a cheap source of capital, and we can allow management to function on its own and be more efficient than they would be either as independents or as parts of other companies. So very successful company. They've got a management style that works. They manage one of the largest companies in the US with about 200 people in headquarters. So they push everything down on their management teams in the various divisions, and they've been quite successful. Most diversifiers have failed and often end up undiversifying. So selling off the pieces that they've built. Something that GE has done recently. They used to somewhere around 40% of their income and revenue was coming from financial services, and they're exiting the financial service market. So they grew it, it was successful. They realized in the downturn in 2008, 2009 that it was a risky business for them to be in, and they have decided to leave it, and they're selling off of all of their financial assets, which are banks and lenders and so forth. So diversification can take place either by developing unrelated product internally, by acquiring product, or starting up new businesses. So all of those ways are ways to diversify. Pros, we've already talked about. The advantages of diversification is that it spreads risk. So if the insurance market is down and the Dairy Queen market is up, then Berkshire Hathaway still has some part of their business growing. It allows you to get into new areas, and when you're mature, when you're in markets that are mature, it allows you to grow in other ways. The disadvantages, obviously, you have to have the resources to be able to do it. It can really confuse brand awareness if you're not careful. Berkshire Hathaway works very hard to not tell people that there's a relationship between Dairy Queen and Geico. And the biggest problem in diversification usually is a loss of focus. So management tends to focus where things are good and ignore things that are bad, and that in diversified companies that can be a lot more damaging than in other types of companies. So the higher level strategies that we're going to look at, we just talked about growth. And the growth is a high level strategy, and we talked about the 4 possibilities within a growth strategy, and that's where most marketing plans come in, is to a growth strategy. The second level of strategy, second type of objective or strategy would be to maintain what we're doing. So sustain where we're at for revenues and market share, maybe try to get more profit from those things, and have our eyes open for future growth. And this might be part of a strategy because a market has shrunk or isn't growing, and we just want to maintain our share, and then when things grow again, we'll be good. You're seeing this, or have seen this over the last few years for some of the big equipment makers. So Caterpillar, the big people that make construction equipment and mining equipment, is their primary market. They have been in a maintenance mode for about 4 years since the mining commodity business crashed in 2013-14. They've been working on a maintenance thing. So their sales have shrunk, but they're working to keep their market share, so when the market comes back, they'll be ready to grow with the market. And then the third one is retrenchment, getting out of markets, dropping products, closing down, all of those possibilities. So let's go a little bit more in depth on that. Because growth isn't always possible or desirable, then you may need to do other things. So we're talking about retrenchment. So different kinds of non-growth strategies. I started it out with the best non-growth strategy there is, which is filing for bankruptcy. This is the total retrenchment. We're getting out. We can't do this anymore. We need to get out. Right now, we're seeing lots of bankruptcies in big retail. So the market has changed, and big retailers are struggling, and lots of them have declared bankruptcy. They're leaving the market, or they're restructuring through bankruptcy. Another non-growth strategy is to get out of certain markets. If we've got a problem in a market, we start leaving that market and concentrate on the markets where we're more successful. Get rid of some products. We've got products. Some of our products are strong and very profitable. Others aren't. So we're going to get rid of them. Get rid of those products that aren't by refocusing on the products that are our core, the things that we're really good at. We may decide to limit distribution, pull back from either geographic distribution or maybe not have as many channel members, and we might close a division. So those are all possibilities of ways to attack a non-growth strategy. So we talked about 4 basic growth strategies. Here's sort of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 non-growth strategies that are often employed. So this is either to get out of a business or to make a business work while we're waiting for the markets to recover. That sort of wraps up part 1 of chapter 5. There'll be some questions following this chapter, and then you can go on to chapter 5, part 2. Thanks very much.